Return of the Jedi doesn't get enough slack for how unoriginal a lot of its ideas are. I find it so lame that the climactic moment of this trilogy is blowing up yet another Death Star. And if you look at the extended lore, I think a lot of other people share my same opinion. How many stories have we gotten in both canon and the EU that tease the construction of the first Death Star? There are no stories after episode 4 that tease the construction of the second Death Star. Also, keep in mind it took the Empire almost 20 years to complete the first Death Star. I get the second one isn't completed yet, but all this was done in at most 4 years, and the second Death Star is much bigger than the first one. I would have loved it if this movie did something else instead of reusing the Death Star.
We're starting our approach. Deactivate the security shield.
I like that right off the bat they're establishing that this Death Star has a shield, because if the last one had a shield, it probably would still be around.
I tell you, this station will be operational as planned.
I don't know who was the lead architect behind the second Death Star, but they should be blamed. Why does the Death Star need to be so big, especially compared to the first one? All the Emperor cares about is that it can blow up planets, so why use the extra resources to make sure it is bigger than the first one? Usually when you redo something technological, it's smaller than the original. Look at the iPhone. They often market the new phones by how thin they are. If the Emperor signed off on the Death Star being the same size or smaller than the original, it would probably be done by now.
We shall double our efforts.
Maybe it's just me, but saying we shall double our efforts as quickly as this guy is quite hard. We shall double our efforts. We shall double our efforts.
The Emperor is not as forgiving as I am.
After watching the last movie, hearing Vader say the Emperor is not as forgiving as I am is quite funny. Although, I guess the Emperor is quite forgiving of you, Vader. In the first movie, you are almost entirely to blame for the destruction of the Death Star because you let Leia escape with the plans. And in the second movie, you failed to not only capture Luke, but Leia as well.
If I told you half the things I've heard about this Jabba the Hutt, you'd probably short-circuit.
This is probably not the case, but I like to think it is. For those of you who watched Star Wars Rebels, in Season 1, Ezra often goes by Jabba the Hutt, and then proceeded to commit war crimes. There's a good chance some of the awful things 3PO has heard about Jabba were actually things Ezra did. That's probably not the case, but that's my headcanon.
R2D2.
I like how 3PO says R2D2 as if he's speaking a different language, but R2's name has the number 2 in it twice. The first time 3PO just says 2. The second time he says Toa. Is that how some languages work?
Bo say 3PO.
Well, here 3PO says 3POA. So in this language, is your name just your regular name but with Oa at the end of it? If your name was Noah, would your name be Noah or Noah Oa? This sequence deserves to be highlighted for how amazing these creatures look. From Bib Fortuna to the Gamorreans to Jabba himself. This movie was a practical effects marvel.
As a token of my goodwill, I present to you a gift. These 2 droids.
Okay, I'm not going to keep bringing this up over the course of the next 2 episodes, so I'm just going to take some time to explain the whole thing now. This entire plan that Luke and company orchestrated to rescue Han makes no sense. Not only that, but you cannot actually tell me what the plan was. So here is everything we know. Firstly, at some point Lando snuck into Jabba's palace and is pretending to be a dude who works there. This actually turns out to be completely useless, but whatever. Then 3PO and R2 go to the palace so Luke can give them to Jabba as a gift. You may think the reason Luke did this was so R2 can hold on to Luke's lightsaber and give it to him at the appropriate time, but more on that later. So now that R2 and 3PO are Jabba's property, Leia comes in and cashes in on Chewbacca's bounty. The assumption here is that Leia can sneak in successfully and rescue Han. So she does that and then tells Han they gotta get out of there. But Jabba saw it coming and the plan failed. Let's pretend for a second that this plan worked, where Leia and Han could have just walked out of there. Now they have to worry about rescuing Chewbacca, R2, and 3PO. I guess you could argue that Lando, who is undercover, could have rescued the 3 of them. I don't know if I find this feasible, but let's pretend that it is. Let's say that was plan A. Have Leia just walk in, rescue Han, and then Lando rescues the rest. Clearly they had a plan B, because then what would be the point of sending the droids? The droids have no relevance to plan A. So if Leia's rescue fails, then plan B starts with Luke just walking in and facing Jabba. He threatens Jabba, and then when Jabba doesn't bulge, he takes someone's blaster and tries to shoot him, which doesn't work. What was his plan here to just kill everyone and then walk out with his friends? That seems like a pretty dumbass plan. If the reason for sending in the droids was so R2 can give Luke his lightsaber, why didn't he ask for his lightsaber here? But either way, Luke fights the Rancor, wins, and then they are all set to be executed by the Sarlacc pit. This is when Luke is able to get the lightsaber by R2 and fight everyone off. So here Luke is living under some pretty strong assumptions. Assumption 1 is that they would be set to be executed by the Sarlacc instead of just getting blasted on the spot. Assumption 2 is that Han and Chewbacca would also be set to be executed. That's a safe assumption, but still quite risky. And assumption 3 is that R2 would be in a position where he could just shoot Luke's lightsaber into the sky so Luke could grab it, where he would then kill everyone and save his friends, which kinda happens. So plan A was to have Leia walk in and rescue Han, and plan B was to have Luke walk in and kill everyone. I feel like Luke should have just ditched plan A and walked into the palace with his lightsaber and killed everyone anyway. But what do I know? Another strange part of this entire plan was that they didn't appear to tell 3PO any part of the plan, because the whole time 3PO is clueless. So yeah, this whole plan either makes no sense or it's a terrible plan. And you know what the funny thing is? I bet you if Leia, with her Princess of Alderaan riches, just went to Jabba's palace and said, "I'll give you 1 million credits for Han," Jabba would have probably said yes. At the end of the day, these syndicates care about money more than anything. Leia could have even asked the Rebel Alliance to give her some money to get Han back. You may think the Alliance wouldn't do this, but keep in mind, after Han gets back, they promote him to General. I think the Rebels would pay a handsome price just to get a General back. So that's my rant on this entire opening sequence. It has great moments, as we'll get into in a second, but the planning behind it makes no sense and was terrible. The Jedi Rock Special Edition change may be one of the most offensive Special Edition changes. Every time I see this douchebag on my screen, I just get angry. Same thing with these other ugly-ass creatures. This Twi'lek might be one of the dumbest people in the galaxy. What on earth did she hope to accomplish here? To pull the 1,000-pound Jabba off his little pedestal? You are also surrounded by all of Jabba's men. The IQ of this woman might be through the floor low. Fun fact, the shots of the green Twi'lek inside the Rancor pit are actually new shots added in the Special Edition. They even brought back the actress over 10 years later just to film these extra 10 seconds for the movie. I wonder if Leia is actually speaking this other language, which the subtitles say is Ubis, or if the helmet that she is wearing is translating her speech for her.
The illustrious Jabba bids you welcome and will gladly pay you the reward of 25,000.
Why is there a bounty out for Chewbacca? What did he do? Is he just guilty by association for being Han's partner? Was there a bounty out for him in the previous movie? If so, then why didn't Boba collect that bounty too? Chewbacca was there.
What did I say?
In the background here, you can see Greedo. Or is it just one of the dozens of Greedos we saw in the first movie?
Because he's holding a thermal detonator.
I gotta give Leia credit here. This whole part of the supposed plan is pretty ballsy. My respect for her certainly went up. If you notice in these handful of shots of Boba Fett, the image is actually flipped horizontally. Boba Fett's antenna is usually on the right side of his helmet, but here it's on the left. And when he pulls up his blaster, he does so left-handed, while other times he's right-handed. I really like this nod from Boba Fett. He's signaling to Leia, "Hey, I respect what you did there. Good job." Little things like that I appreciate. I get that the point of the shot is that Lando is pulling down his mask so the viewers can recognize him. But realistically, why is Lando doing this? He can just see fine without pulling down the mask.
Just relax for a moment. You're free as a carbonite.
So here Leia is speaking in plain English. That leads me to believe before Leia was actually speaking in that other alien language. Good for her for knowing multiple languages, especially when she grew up with a protocol droid most of her life. I get this scene is romantic and all, but realistically Han's mouth probably stinks. I wouldn't kiss him if I was Leia.
I know that laugh.
So this moment puzzles me a little bit. It appears that Jabba saw this whole plan coming because he was sitting there behind the curtain waiting for Han to be rescued. That means he must have known that the bounty hunter before was someone who was there to rescue Han. How would he know that? Was it because they brought Chewbacca along? Either that or Jabba is playing 4D chess and can see the future. There's a lot of debate here about what Luke actually did, but I don't see how there's any debate. Luke blatantly choked these guys. There's no way around it. I like how all these people are casually sleeping in this part of the palace. Not only that, but they're all sleeping sitting up in the most uncomfortable positions. Even Leia here seems to be asleep, and that position looks so uncomfortable. Also, I like how 3PO is just standing here. In A New Hope, when 3PO powered down, his body went limp. So either he can power down while properly standing, or he is awake and is just looking at the wall.
You will take me to Jabba now.
Here's a funny thought. Can a Jedi mind trick work on you if you don't speak the language of the Jedi? In Star Wars, it appears that a lot of people understand English. They are just incapable of speaking it. But say you didn't understand English. Would a mind trick work on you? If I went to China and mind tricked someone who just didn't speak English, what would happen? Would they just remain frozen? Would they say, "What the hell am I saying?" Luke tells Bib Fortuna that he'll be rewarded. Does he ever get rewarded? Maybe you could make the argument that his reward was being the leader of the crime syndicate, because that's what we see at the end of The Mandalorian Season 2, would Luke even have that kind of influence over the crime syndicates to personally choose who fills the power vacuum? Click on the link here to watch Overanalyzing Star Wars Return of the Jedi Part 2. If you don't see the link, the video hasn't come out yet. Thank you everyone so much for watching another one of my videos. Don't forget to unite the Glod Squad, and I will see you guys next time.